Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And listen. We're going to have a great time here. And one of the things, though, since we only have an hour and there is 29 of you here, I'm going to try to go through everybody's work. But to be fair, what we do is we kind of scramble all the names so that they're not always in the same order. So it's kind of like in a bingo drum. So don't worry if your last name is Z or anything like that because we just kind of like randomly scatter them around. So what I have here is I have and for the most part, except for Agnes's because she's right here, right up front and the first one to look at. I haven't looked at any of these, so the good thing is I'm going to be looking at these for the first time together, and just give you my immediate kind of reaction towards them. And if there's any questions or anything, there's only so many I could do, but I could definitely answer any questions that you might have about any of this. And the good thing is like the first few images that I look at and help people with, it might take a little bit longer, but as we move through, everything becomes a little bit redundant, so I don't need to reiterate things over and over again. So I'm going to just look at this fabulous work that Agnes put into this class. Now, one of the things that I happen to know, because she was in my first hour with the office hour time with me, is that she had a hard time with the pelvis, and everybody does. The pelvis is just a major headache for most people. Just really quickly, let me just show you what I showed everybody in the first hour. And that is from my book, Gray's Anatomy. And I had drawn all over it. But, the dimples on the backside are the posterior superior iliac spines. So these are basically pelvises in movement. But let's get back to Agnes's here. Because a lot of these things that I showed you guys are really golden. These are fabulous. Just the kite is something that all of you will always benefit from. Because not everybody's going to have a kite, of course. As somebody mentioned in the last hour, well, what if somebody has, breasts are like hanging down by the belly button? It's like, well, of course, this is just a guideline, for Pete's sake. These are just things that help you out. But you're going to see that everybody has, unless, your model had some kind of like surgery to have things removed, they're going to have like the nipples, the pit of the neck, and the belly button. And the baseball diamond, which is the anterior superior iliac spine of each pelvis, each side of the pelvis, the pubic bone, which is home base, and then if you go across, it gets you to the great trochanter of the femur. So these were really well done, Agnes. Let me see. The one thing I could tell Agnes about this back view is that the scapulas are a little bit too big. They're not quite the size of the head. They're smaller than the head. So I'm going to just, as a matter of fact, this is the way I look at it. For any of you that still know analog clocks, if you have a clock that doesn't have any hands, you could still tell, hopefully, that this is 2:30, right? How about this one over here? This is 9:30. Does that make sense? See that? 9:30 on the left, on the right here is 2:30. That's the scapula on your back. And that's the scapula on your back. It's not literally like that, but at least it gives you a guideline. And that's your spine. And that's your posterior superior iliac spine, the dimples on your backside, the triangle, and your butt cleft. Got it? So look at that over here. You can always tell where the top part is, which is called the acromion process, because that's where the dip is. Do you see that? It's where your shoulder dimples. So if there's any questions about any of this, please let me know and let Peter know, and Peter will let me know. This one's fabulous. Yes, Peter. Oh, get rid of the camera? Sure. Let me get it all the way out because I don't need to see my silly face here. So I'm going to just get it all the way out. There, like that. Okay. There. How's that? Okay, good. So, good analysis. This one over here is really neat because that is a drawing, I believe, by Raphael of Michelangelo's David. And I always thought that was such a sweet kind of tribute. All right, so that was fabulous. Thank you for that, Agnes, the hard work that you put into that. This was the Ada. And now, Ada, just to make things for all of you, if you're having a hard time with like the ribs, don't even bother with the ribs. Make like a solid rib cage. That's a 10th rib. Very, very good. Just keep it simple. You know, you could just draw kind of like this. This is like a t-shirt opening. This is your little necktie, which is the sternum. And just do this, everybody. If you ever have to do anything like this again, or if you want to keep practicing, which is actually a good idea, and then you found the 10th ribs, which are really well done. Like that. So that's it. Just keep it as like a shell. This is really tricky because what happens here is that the radius, there's two bones in your forearm. The radius and the ulna behind it. I don't need to make them fancy. I'm just going to draw two lines. One of them is reddish. And you can see the bump that sticks out. Some of you have a pretty good pronounced bump over here by your pinky finger, right? The radius always follows the thumb. So wherever the thumb is, the radius follows. Okay, so in that case, these are both parallel. Over here, they're not parallel. This is the way your dog or your cat would be walking towards you, right? Their paws are facing you, which means that their radius is pronated or crossing over. Do you see that? That's where the thumb is. Always look at that. Whenever you have a model in front of you, look to see where his or her thumb is, and that's where their radius is. Same thing here. This one's easy because that's the radius. This is the ulna, and the ulna also includes your elbow. So I'm going to keep it in line form. I like the fact that you took the time to label everything, a chromium process. And that's an N, by the way. I know you didn't think you'd have to get into spelling. Okay, but thanks for the hard work. This is really good. Scapula is actually more like this. And now you'll see with each one, this is really good. I really commend you for this, Ada, that you actually got the foreshortened scapula over here. See, you only see that much of it. Over here, you see this much of it. That's really, really well done. I was really impressed with that. Good job. Let's see who this is. Now, this is Brenda. Oh, nicely done. And good reference, by the way. These are beautiful. This is really tricky. I don't know how you did that, but you did a good job with that foreshortening. The scapulas are really well done. The chromium process of the scapula. That's so important to see. The posterior superior iliac spines. The anterior superior iliac spines would be a little bit more like this. And let me show you how you find them. See the flank muscle? It does that, right? And on the other side, it's like this. And then here's the belly button, in case you're wondering where I'm at. Here are the genitals down here. And this is the rectus abdominis, or the six-pack muscles that the kids like to refer to them as. Does this look kind of familiar, right? It's this drop-off where the anterior superior iliac spines are of the pelvis. That gives it away because the flank muscle rests right on the ilium just as the pelvis breaks. And what I mean by breaks is that it's almost like it's a pot, like for a plant. Here's like this clay pot that you might have somewhere on your property. See this clay pot? Except it's broken. Like this. And where it's broken, the little corners there, those are the anterior superior iliac spines of the pelvis. How do you like them apples? Nicely done. This is really good. So far, I'm pretty impressed with you guys. All right, let's see whose work this is. Becca. Okay, same thing. Well, the scapula's got way big, Becca. And now everybody will see, little by little. It's like, I don't have to say anything. You can look at it yourself and say, oh yeah, the scapulas are a little bit large. Everything else is looking pretty good. The anterior superior spines are here, Becca, which means that you would actually see the pelvis going into the body like that. And this is really tricky, by the way, because you have like almost like a, not a 3/4 view, but it's turning. And that makes the pelvis really difficult to try to draw and depict. And I think you did an exceptionally good job trying to do that. That is not easy, everybody. Good labeling. Clavicle and acromion process, except that it looks like the clavicle is on the back side here. Okay, if there's any questions, please let Peter know and he'll relay them back to me, okay? Because I need to fly through these, and then if there's time, yes, what's the question? Great. Okay, so the question is about the acromion process and where it is. Let me just show you something. Now, the way I'm going to answer that, and then when we get back to the work, it's going to make everything clear. This is front view, by the way. I always think of the clavicles or your collarbones as almost like bicycle handlebars. I'm going to draw them almost as if this was like a beach cruiser bicycle. Something you guys might have there, like this. Do you see the handlebars? And then there is the necktie, which is the sternum. So those three, it's almost like a propeller. Almost like an outstretched figure. Like that. And then behind here is the t-shirt opening. That's what they call it. So I'm going to draw the same thing, but over here, just to help you with this, because now I'm going to do it in 3/4 view. So here's the bicycle handlebar. The distal end, or the end, the furthest end of the clavicle articulates with the acromion process of the scapula, like that. Like that. And then here's the rib cage. So the scapula comes in from the back. I'm going to draw it very softly because I want it to kind of disappear. I want to draw the back view as well, because this will make it a lot easier for you to understand and for me to answer that question. There. So from the back, see, what happens is this. From this very straight view, the acromion process is actually a little bit lower than the distal end, or the very far end of the clavicle. That's why on your body, it will look like it stair steps down like this. You can feel that. You can take your finger and run it across the top of your clavicle and see that stair steps down. Where it stair steps down, that's the acromion process. The good thing about that is your deltoid surrounds this whole area. So when you lift your arm, like in this case, I'm going to lift the arm here, the deltoid buckles and becomes indented right in here. See that puckering that happens with your deltoid. But from the back, watch this. I'm going to draw spine of the scapula. This is your 2:30 o'clock scapula. Your scapula basically looks like this. This is the acromion process. This part goes forward towards the front to meet with the clavicle. And that's the clavicle bump right there, right? This is your scapula, like that. And then there's a superior aspect or upper part like that. And then there's an inferior part like that. So this is your acromion process. And your deltoid, as I said, from the front view, surrounds that whole area right in here. So as you raise your arm, it buckles right there. And if your deltoid is kind of like a donut, there's the donut hole right in here. And your trapezius comes into here. Your arm goes up like that. And it goes over your head, for instance. Got it? So where it buckles, that's it. The donut hole is the acromion process. I hope that answered that. It's a really good question. EK. Wow, this is really nicely done. Look at this, everybody. Great scapulas, everything, scapulae. Nice. I don't even want to mess with that. Let me see something. Okay, let's see what this one is and whose this is. MZ. So now we got into the initials. Okay, good little studies. You're just looking for all the little important landmarks, almost like a constellation is what you're doing, which is fine. The clavicle or the scapula doesn't quite go like this. What happens is this. Who is this again? MZ. MZ, what happens is this. When the arm goes up, the scapula, let me make this smaller. The scapula actually rotates. This is the scapula. It rotates up on a point right in here as if that was a pin. So as the arms go up, then the scapula rotates away. Did everybody get that? See, the scapula in neutral always looks kind of like this. Remember 2:30 o'clock? When the arm is down. And then as you start moving your arm horizontally, it stays put. It doesn't move. When it breaks that horizontal and it turns into like this, that is when the scapula activates and it starts rotating up with the arm. Do you see that, you guys? Isn't that neat? So this is a rotating scapula because the arm is up beyond horizontal. Okay, remember that. That's a really important lesson to be learned by this person's work. The scapula is over here. This is not an easy thing, you guys. Scapula is way over here. Okay, scapulas are not easy to identify. The kite is good. Really good plotting. On your own time, you can try to draw a very rudimentary, almost stick figure skeleton just to get yourself a little bit more familiar. You found some really good reference too, just to practice on your own. You don't have to show me any longer. Everybody turns in what they can. All right, let's see whose this is. And this one is, God, the writing's so little. AD. Oh, this is another really good one. With a few little cross-section lines. And I want everybody to watch what everybody else, look to see what everybody else is turning in. Because you could get ideas from the way people work. and do this. And Peter, you cut in any time that somebody has a question. I don't mind stopping. This is really good, Adi. Really, really nicely done. Didn't need to do anything with that. Matt, let's take a look at your... This is another really good one. I do want you to put like a little bit more of like where the anterior or posterior superior iliac spines are. Like really make a demarcation. Because that's a really good pelvis. Pelvises are not easy to draw. Let's see. Let me just... If I pause, it just means I'm looking. Guy, you're trying to draw every single little rib, which is not easy. Let me see something here. The bones are not crossing, by the way. They're just parallel. That's the radius. Who's this, Matt? And this is the ulna. The ulna includes the elbow. So there is no crisscrossing, by the way. Now, you might know that now from what I just said. This one is actually okay. This one was not okay. And it is very confusing, by the way. That's one of the hardest things for my students to kind of get is the rotation of the radius and the ulna. And I lopped off that bottom part of that scapula. It got a little bit much. Okay, that was Matt's. Let's see, Russ. Let's see what you got here. Let's see if I can get rid of this one. All right, so let's see what Russ has. Oh, these are terrific studies. You don't have to do every bone of the foot, but you could put at least like the rudimentary parts of the foot in here. Like the tarsal bones, metatarsals, and then the toes. Like that. You don't have to get too noodly, but you don't want to just leave it alone either. Fibula, very good. Rib cage is well done. This is really, yeah, it's nice. Scapula's got way big. Okay, that's something that you guys have to just keep in mind is that the scapulas are kind of dainty. I have real scapulas here in my studio. And it's surprising how my students are always ask me, it's like, is that like a kid's? It's like, no, it's an adult scapula. They're just not as big as you would think that they are. All right, that was Russ. Dimblot, let's see what we have here. Yeah, it's a little hard to see, but I think I can make out what you have here. I think because those, it might have been tracing paper, I don't know, or maybe it was the reference. Yeah, maybe a little bit more clarity. Making things just a little bit clearer. This got a little discombobulated. Let me just see if I can help you with the scapula over here. Everybody, when the body rotates, you only see a sliver. It's almost like if I did a little karate chop, with my hand right in front of you and my pinky finger is towards you and my thumb is behind all the whole hand. You really don't see much. So that's almost what happens when the body rotates away. Whenever you have a hard time finding the scapula, what you want to do is use a little perspective, like Eric Olson would do. Like this, watch. Take this scapula that you do know and rotate over, and that's how you know where the bottom part of the other scapula would be. Yeah, Peter. Was there a question? Got it. Okay. All right. Let me see who Rosdenbot and James. Let's see what James has here. And everybody can learn from what everybody's doing. You know what's interesting about this, James? Now, you may not have known this, but I'm going to tell you. Not sure if anybody's caught this, but that's a female pelvis. And the reason that is because see this opening right over here, right above the genitals? That's a female opening. The male opening would be more like a capital A. And that's kind of important when you do an assignment like this. Make sure that you give him or her the right pelvis to go along with the gender. So, can everybody actually see me, Peter? And see my hand? This is something that I was taught by my friend that he's a doctor at UCLA, and I take my students to the cadaver lab there. And I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm doing this kind of like nerdy anatomy gang sign. Do you see this, what I'm doing here? See this? This opening here of the pelvis is male. And that is the pelvic arch that is right above the genitals. This one here between my index finger and my thumb is the female opening. So what I just did with my fingers was this. This is male, and this is the ischium, the little two little loops underneath your pelvis that even cartoon skeletons have. That's very male. This is very female. It's much more open because it's designed to accommodate a baby going through this area right in here. Got it? So that's how you could tell that that's a female pelvis. Or if you guys are digging weeds in the backyard and dig up a human pelvis, before you call the authorities, because you should actually do that, make sure that you know that you could determine, if it's a male or female, as long as they've gone through puberty. Now, the other thing about this, though, is, no, actually, this is good. The one thing you did that was exceptionally well done over here, and I'm impressed with this, James, is the rotation of the radius and the ulna. Yeah, that's really good. Not too many people would have gotten that. So both of these are really well done. Nice job, James. And now I have AJ. Yeah, and I have a question. Got it. Tarsal articulation, where it is on the foot. Why do you even have something here? Well, I'm going to show you this and I'm going to draw something for you guys. In this image down here where you can see the x-ray kind of thing, these are the metatarsals, the top of your foot. This section over here that almost looks like a rock wall, like just stones that you put together, in your yard, like that, those are the tarsals. But to make it easier for you, let me actually draw that for you, because I think it'll make it easier for you to see. Watch. I'm going to draw the side view of the foot, because this is going to be the easiest. So the question was about where the tarsal-metatarsal articulation is on the feet. Here's your little toe. Watch this, because this is a really good helpful hint. Where if you measure the end of the little toe, now obviously these aren't all universal because every person is different, but this is the way I teach it. And we always teach generalities because that's all you can do. Wherever the little toe is, if you find a halfway point, that's a tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal. So the metatarsal bones are your heel, and then 6 other bones making them 7. There's 7 bones that make up your heel bones. And in this, like if I put a pin here, like a hole, that's where your foot would pivot from. This is side view. This is still part of that. Okay? Those are tarsal bones, and there's 7 of them. Then there's the 5 metatarsal bones. So they kind of like do this, until you get to the 5th one. And that's where your pinky toe is. Like that. And then your other toes go like that. Do you see that? So that's a skeletal version of what I'm going to draw over here. So if I make an arc, like I do here, see that arc? That's a tarsal, metatarsal articulation. Right there. So watch this. So if you look very carefully at a foot, maybe not your foot, but a foot, you'll see that there's a change of direction. And then the other toes do this. Does that make sense? So basically at the end of your foot, that's at the halfway point. The end of your little toe and your heel is the tuberosity fifth metatarsal. But the tarsal metatarsal articulation is actually at the halfway point, basically, of the entire foot. Like that. So when the foot gets almost like a ballet dancer, you'll see what I mean here. You'll see this often. This is like the way it will look. It drops down like that. Watch. And it's almost like a foot inside a high heel. So if I were to do this, you could actually see a slight little change of direction. This bump is actually like the tibia. But that is the spot right there. So remember, it's at the end of, if you look at the end of your foot and the end of your heel, at the halfway point, you'll see a little tiny bump there. Sometimes it's even more pronounced. So if you could see, like inside a person wearing a high heel, it's where the foot kind of bends. And if you make an arc, you'll see the tarsal metatarsal articulation. I hope that helps. It's kind of neat because once you know that, you'll always know that. You'll never not know that. Okay, AJ, good job. The ribs got a little bit big. Let me just get a little layer on here so I can draw on it. A little bit big over here. And you took a lot of time to draw those. So I do appreciate that. Don't worry about that. I see it. The anterior superior spines over here. Scapula's a little bit big. I think everybody could see that now. Okay, let's see. After AJ, now it's Annie. Hi, Annie. Let me see. There's Annie's work. Oh, I see what you did. So in this case, the ulna, and let me see if I can make it bigger and darker. The ulna is your elbow, and it goes to your pinky finger. So the radius would actually start over here where the red is and cross over and disappear because the thumb disappears. Got it? You did it really well over here. On both sides. You actually did it well over here. This is the only one that wasn't quite right. Scapulas are okay. Posterior. You missed the posterior superior iliac spines. They're actually way up here, Annie. If you could kind of imagine where his little dimples are, that's where they would be. The pelvis is male. It's almost close to starting to become female, but no, you did it. You did good. You can't know all this stuff, you guys. It's too much. Tan. Let's see how this looks. See, the scapula is, this is the problem with the scapula. And this is another thing I haven't mentioned before. When you look at the clock hands and it says 230, one of the things that's consistent with every scapula is that, and this is just a very simplified scapula, right? Is that this angle is more than 90 degrees. Always. So over here, it's an acute angle. So what I would do to change it, tan, is I would do this. There. Now it's an obtuse angle. So that's where the scapula is. Did everybody get that? Because that's something that just came up that's new. Same thing here. So that has to be an obtuse angle. Really good work. These are really nicely done, Dan. Really, really good. Okay, who do I have? I have Jeff here. Wow, every rib was done. Yikes. Gosh, Jeff. That's a lot of work. I really appreciate this. I'm pausing only because I really want to scan over and be able to help as much. This is really good, everybody. And the presentation is beautiful. Beautiful. You get one of these. All right. I hope you heard that and just know that I appreciate that. Huh? Everybody, you like that? I do too. Okay, Taha, I think. Nice. And I also like the fact that you highlighted the major kind of bony landmarks. This is another one. This is what I mean by you don't really necessarily have to draw every little rib for me, even though I showed you the examples from my students that have that. You know, depending on how much time you have and, you know, kids and dogs and all that stuff, you know, you do what you can each week with the homework that you turn in for me. Got it? But this is another incredibly good example. Jeff, Taha, very, very nice. And good reference, by the way. Just beautiful reference. Good job. Lena, good. So you used the tracing paper method, which is fine. Do whatever you guys need to. You know what you could do, too, for me? I don't know if you have access to, like, a good art supply store. But get Canson. If you're going to keep working with tracing paper, calc. Tracing paper. It's beautiful. It's really high-end, very flat. You get a pad of it, like a 9x12 pad. And it's gorgeous to work on. Because you could keep working with tracing paper. I don't care. Good job. And next on you have Sabin Howard, looks like, used for reference. Oh, and Anthony Ryder. Oh, they're both Anthony Ryder. Oh, yeah, I've met him a few times at LAFA. He's a good guy. Nice, Lena. Really, really like this. The great trochanters go out further. Out here. That's what creates that indentation. Do you see that, Lena, right there? Next time, you could also try to keep the tracing paper over the image and then scan it. But the way you did it is actually acceptable because you outlined the figure, which is good. But take the skeleton further out. Now, granted, this is a female. This one, the back view is a female, so there's going to be more subcutaneous fat. But you could push it a little bit further than what you have now. Got it? Scapula doesn't go quite that far in this pose. Sorry, I lose my voice here. Okay, thanks, Lena. And now Cindy. Wondering if it's the same Cindy I just had in the first hour. Wow, Cindy, this is really good. Nice. Scapula is a little bit big. This is a lot of work you did here. Okay, everybody taking a look at this. If there's any questions, make sure that you let me know. This is really exceptionally good. Thanks, Cindy, for your hard work. Robusta? Yeah, what's the question? Yeah, the way, okay, and the question is about memorizing where the radius and the ulna. And the easiest thing is always look, and I'm going to use colors here. Always look to see where the thumb is. Where the thumb is, that's where the radius is. And the radius is always on the outside part of the humerus. So if I were to draw the humerus, right humerus, front view, just to make it really clinical, really simple, that little bump I drew is where the deltoid is attached. This is the bottom part by the bend of your elbow. So the inside part is pointy, like a pickaxe. The outside part is blunt. So this part here is the funny bone. This and this are both the bones. So the radius always follows the thumb. So I'm going to do it like that. The ulna is always where the pinky finger is. So always look on your models where the pinky finger is and where the thumb is. And where the thumb is, that's where the radius follows. Always, always, always. Like that. Okay, so that's it's as simple as that. Let me see if I could do this. And that's how I teach my students in class to memorize. The elbow is your ulna. And it always goes to that bump, because that's that bump by your wristwatch is your ulna. Got it? So hopefully that will help. So pinky finger, ulna, and elbow. And on the inside part of your body, or the bone. And this is where your rib cage would be. Okay, so that's how I would teach you guys. Whose is this? Robusto. This is really good. Almost too much of a right angle, but that's just a little minor thing. Good job. Is this Debbie? Hi, Debbie. Let's see what Debbie has here. Oh, this is nice. Okay, see, this is what I mean. You can actually just keep it simple. The pelvis got a little confusing here, but you actually found the spots, and that's more important than anything for me. That you found the important, impertinent spots. And now you can see the flank muscle does this, and it drops off right at the anterior superior iliac spine. The kite is one of the best things I could have taught you. And that's worth the price of admission in itself. So always look for that with every model that you have. Nice, nice, Debbie. And now we have PR. Let's see what PR has here. And you know what? Just give me the shape of the rib cage. And from now on, when you're doing, because I hope that you guys do some of these on your own still, because it's really worth it. And you have form lines going across the bones. This one, see, this is a good example. This crosses over. So the ulna is on the back side, which includes your elbow, and it comes to where the pinky finger is. Do you see that? Good. Yeah, I'm just looking at other things. The pelvis is done pretty well on that back view. Nice. Okay, so Ryan, let's see what Ryan has. Okay, scapulas are going to be a constant kind of like issue with everybody. Yeah, it's not an easy bone. It's one of my favorite bones, if not my favorite bone. That's why I bought like real human scapulas, just like I have them here. Kind of a anatomy nerd. There, pelvis is done okay. It's hard to rotate that, but you did a pretty good job. It's just not easy. Not easy. Okay, that was Ryan. All right, so whose is this? This is Nathan. Nathan, let's see. It looks like you found a Leonardo. Oh, and let me get rid of this other one here. There. So I could draw on that. Wow, this is really good. Both of them are Leonardo drawings. The knees are a little small. Think of like, especially now with COVID-19. Watch this, everybody. You're going to like this. See the knee? This is the front view of a right knee. That's the femur. You know, like with COVID-19, a lot of times I've seen people, and I've even done this, where you do the fist pump thing instead of shaking hands. Well, think of this as the new fist pump in anatomy. It's the tibia fist pumping with the femur, and then you'll have your knee. So it's a nice big fist-like thing. See my fist? And see my other fist? And they just kind of ram into each other. And then here's the patella, just so you can see where the patella is. That gives you like a "you are here," like at the mall, so you know where I'm at. This little T, see, that's like T for tibia, because the top part of the T to me kind of looks like the tibia looks like a T, like that. So if you could see that, it goes almost from side to side. But these are really well done. Thanks, Nathan, for the hard work. Good stuff. See whose this is. This is Ruby. Let me zoom in a little bit, Ruby. Oh, nice, nice. Ribcage got a little bit big. Sometimes what happens is when you have like a big guy like this, big, strong, you know, like a Greek guy there, we tend to push the ribcage too close to the outside border. But this is really nicely done. So, and that's all I can say about that, is that you did a good job. I love the pelvic frame that you created in here. And the radius and the ona are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So once again, everybody, you guys now know wherever the thumb is, that's where the radius goes. You would see a little bit of the ona here, though. Watch. The ona starts off big, crosses over underneath, and it will come out here. Like that. So you would see a little bit of it. So I'm going to draw it a little bit more clearly. There. That's the radius and the ona. Okay, that was Ruby. Thank you, Ruby. Good work. Yeah, what's the question? Yeah, so on a really muscular figure, how do you find the rib cage? I think it's fairly easy. Let me just show you, if Simon doesn't mind me scribbling all over his drawing here. First of all, Simon, just make sure that the radius starts off small and becomes bigger as it gets closer to the thumb. All right, so on a really muscular figure, let's say all you have to do is look to see where the belly button is and the nipples, like that. Okay, so, and then here's the pit of the neck. Okay, so really muscular guy. You know, it's like built like an anatomy art teacher. Okay, not really, but big, like this. And he's like this, and he's like this, and really big and heroic. And it's like, wow, that rib cage is like definitely like hiding in there. So the way you find it, I'm going to just change some of this because now it's like I don't like it. Let me start again, because I want this to be really clear. Okay, there's that, right? And this guy's really very muscular. Wherever the belly button is, watch this. I'm going to make a line right above the belly button. That is where the rib cage ends. So if I look at the pit of the neck, I don't know who asked that, but that's a really good question. Watch, I'm going to make an arc around the nipples, and they're going to hit that line. That's the rib cage. No matter how big this guy is, this guy could be like this. You know, just huge. Like a superhero. Right? Like that. But that's where the rib cage is. Here's the sternum, which goes below the chest. And underneath everything is, I hope that helps. is the rib cage, like that. And then the rectus abdominis might be really dominant, so you won't see much rib cage at all. Down like that. So just always look to see where the belly button is. You know that the rib cage is going to hit just a little bit higher than that line. If you put a line or a belt line above the belly button, that's it. I hope that helps. That's a really big muscular, because you can't see rib cage on these guys that get really huge. But that's how you find it. It's always going to be in the same position as if you were really thin and scrawny. Okay, Sebastian. That's my nephew's name. He's with the Chicago White Sox, by the way. Sebastian. Okay, so the only thing is the ribs tend to fall down. This is important because you can actually see ribs. Like if somebody's kind of leaner and they stretch upward, you can see that the rib cage do not go across, Sebastian, from the vertebral column. They fall down like this, like a pine tree. Now it's going to be important when you look at people and you can actually see their rib cage. Got it? And on the front, you could actually see the opening is like a big A-frame. And this is another good example of like somebody who's pretty muscular, right? Like the last question. But you could tell if the belly button is here, the rib cage is not going to go down quite as far as the belly button. It can, but usually the rule of thumb is to keep it just above the belly button. Hope that helps. So Sebastian kind of helped with that. All right, so let's see. Who do I have here? I have, is it Nita? Because it's so small. Peter, can you see that name? I think it's Nita or Neela. Neela, okay, thank you so much for this, Neela. Yeah, you got it. You got it. The rib cage, a little small. And this is another good example of like, where's the rib cage on this guy? This guy's really muscular. You did a pretty darn good job with the radius and the ulna. Look at that. Especially here. Very few people would have gotten that. Tarsometatarsal articulation would be a little bit further down over here, Neela. Right down here. Now you know, right, you guys? Maybe it was you who was asking me. But it's one of my favorite spots just because it's like, wow, once I learned it, I saw it all the time. And that's the whole point of learning anatomy, is that your eyes will be so much better. And Theo, really good plotting. Really good plotting. Same thing that we just talked about, right? You could see where the rib cage kind of is. Yeah, good reference. And you just plotted more than drawing a skeleton, which is totally okay. You guys kind of take these assignments as best you can. It would have been nice to have seen, like, here's the elbow, right? And you could see where it's going to end up because there's like a little ball. And then the radius would be off to the side like this. Okay, so there's no crossing over here. Okay, same thing up here. Pretty straightforward. Like that. Both bones are just parallel. All right, that's it for our hour. It was great meeting you guys. Thanks for turning in the fabulous work. And every week, as you can see, it's fast and furious. Last term, I had 2 hours. This term, I have 1 hour to do that. And the main frame, I just caught that, by the way, Theo. Love that. See the main frame, everybody? That's a really important part of the way I teach, is the acromion processes to the great trochanters of each femur. Thank you so much for the hard work that you guys put into this. Unless there's a question or something. If there is, I'm not in a big hurry. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, on the back view, the rib cage is a whole different little thing here. Let me see if I can get another piece of blank paper. All right, so you have like a back view. Let's just kind of throw in something really quickly. Okay, so you have a person's back like this. And especially again, like if it's a pretty well-built person, might see something like this. And the latissimus dorsi, I mean, everything gets like really big, right? And this is kind of like the point. And like, where the heck is that rib cage? Here's C7. A lot of times what I ask my students to try to do is visualize where the belly button is. And it's not hard if you think about it. Right? Think about it. Here's another clue. Watch. If this person bent back, this is where he would fold. I'm going to put shadow like this. And then this bounces this way. And then here is the posterior superior iliac spine and a gluteal cleft. Do you see where that bending happens? And this happens like if you have like a front view like or side view like this. Watch. The rib cage does this. Right? And then the lower part of the same person will go like this. Does that make sense? Right? So that's what I'm talking about. That's where the rib cage manifests itself. It gives itself away. Here's the flank muscle. Does that make sense? So that's where the rib cage is. The other thing is visualize where the belly button would be. Would it be maybe here? Yeah, let's say the belly button on the front is around that level. So that's where the rib cage is. And it's not quite as big because this guy's really big. And the latissimus dorsi does that. But that crease is being created by the rib cage underneath everything. How's that? Does that make it clear? And here's the pelvis. That's a good general rule. Where is the person bending? Because that changes from the rib cage area and then the soft squishy center and then the pelvic area. Okay? How's that? Yeah, one more question, sure. Sure. So in this case here, right? Now this gets tricky because here's a couple different ways you could do this. See the gluteal cleft? I'm going to just use this because we already have it. The great trochanter on the side, I think, is a little bit easier to find. Especially since if this is where the genitals are, then that's the pubic bone. And wherever the pubic bone is, that's where the great trochanter is. Remember that from the front view. Now, when you have a back view like this, and here's like the butterfly of like the male butt area, like this, watch. Watch. This isn't going to work with everybody, but the bottom line is if you're making somebody up, then if you just crisscross across that, like right angle, so now it's horizontal, from the halfway down of the butt crack, that's where the great trochanters are. How do you like them apples? That's it. Because that's where the pubic bone is in the front. Now, to be honest, though, that varies on person to person. But when you're not sure, nobody's going to care. You just use that as a guide. Wherever the center of that butt crack is, you go lateral on each side, and that's where the great trochanter is. How's that for nifty? And where the great trochanter is, if you make a line from the posterior superior iliac spine to that great trochanter. That's why you get that beautiful kind of like cute butterfly shape. Because this is gluteus medius and this is gluteus maximus, and this is the separation between the two. How do you like them apples? Is that good, Peter? Great. Well, there's any others? Or is that it? Sure. The intercostal muscles and the rib cage. Well, that is a brilliant question. You know why? Because when somebody is really big, this is something that really perplexed me for a long time. My teachers did not know the answer. So I finally had to find the answer myself. The intercostal muscles, everybody, if you don't know what we're talking about, are the muscles in between each rib. Or for those of you that eat meat, if you go get a rack of ribs, not human, of course, but animal, you're eating the intercostal muscles. Obviously, don't look for that on the menu. Could I have the intercostal muscle special of the day? It's going to just be ribs. But what's interesting is this. Here's the rib. Okay, now, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to draw a rib over here. Like this is rounding off like one of the, on the rib cage, right? Watch this. The intercostal muscles are actually indented on most people. So if you see like a model, let's say it's a female, right? And they raise their arms up and their bones, and I'm going to actually give this a little bone color. Don't try to stop me. Let's just make it a little bit nicer. So that's bone. That's bone. And that's bone. These are the intercostal muscles. So in this case, with this particular individual, what you're going to see is you're going to see the ribs. You won't see the intercostal muscles because they're indented. But with somebody that works out a lot and all of their muscles get really big, then the muscle in between the ribs gets big, and it's the thing that stands out the most. So sometimes when you look at a back by Michelangelo and it looks like that person has huge ribs, it's not the ribs, it's the intercostal muscles. So now what happens is that the ribs are the indented part. Isn't that amazing? Very few people know that, but now you do. And you can pass that on. So now the intercostal muscles. So don't worry about the intercostal muscles. You're only going to see those on people that are really big. They work out a lot. Or you'll see them on a Michelangelo back, male back. You'll see what appears to be huge ribs, but they're not ribs. They're the intercostal muscles. Okay, I hope that answered that. Any other questions, Peter? Fabulous, everybody. I hope you learned something, and I learned something myself. I learned that I love this more every time I teach it. That's what I learned. And I love answering questions, so there isn't anything that's going to stump me. You could try, though. So thanks, and I'll see you guys next week. Peter, you could take over.